Thinking about the theoretical framework as this project started, it was, I think, a conscious decision to leave it basically open. So we opened the field of architecture to people coming from outside of this place to reflect on it, to give us different pointers, etc. But when we start talking about architecture, we start thinking about our immediate environment, and this is what demands our consideration, especially if we are thinking about what is taking place, the processes that are taking place in society today. And my initial idea was basically to compare three buildings. One in Ljubljana, one in Belgrade, and one in Sarajevo. And also that was, I think, a strategic decision because I wanted to kind of engage in a transnational, if you want, dialogue. However, and also this was kind of open yesterday, but this in the end posed many problems, and as we come to research all of this architecture and material, we realize that these boundaries that have started to take place in the 90s actually do have quite practical implications for our architectural or historical or whatever research. And so when I started doing this, I was completely aware that I'm unaware of what the result is going to be. And I think that yesterday already Mario talked about how this research project developed and how it was not so much about looking at a certain period through only architectural achievements and biographies. It was basically about the processes that were taking place in certain societies and how this basically led to a specific architectural language, a specific landscape of ideology and architecture. And if we want to talk about this, basically these past events that were taking place, and if we want to talk about architecture that was built in this post-Second World War era, then we cannot basically escape the question of ideology because it has changed some phases in the course of history. And when we come to these questions, it is constantly thinking about how to talk about architecture and ideology today. What is the role of historiography? How do we deal with archives that have become piled up in different countries? How do we have access to it? At the same time, architecture basically is experienced in our daily lives. So when we are interpreting architecture, we must understand that Yugoslavia was basically a political project within which we need to think when interpreting it. And it was, architecture at that point was a product of the state building process. And in order to understand it and how this process was similar and different from others, the questions of modernity needs to be contextualized within the parameters that defined its specific goals. And mostly when we are discussing this, we are aware of certain implications, but we take them for granted, so to speak. And when we are discussing it, we have to be aware that we are discussing architectural production of a certain era, of certain society that does not exist any longer. And what happens at this point is when we start reflecting, we see that we have to deal with a very complex history of Yugoslavia, which often prevents people that we were inviting basically into this project, these outside views that cannot see or understand what was happening inside. So we are dealing with many obvious points. However, I found this very intriguing, basically this inside and outside. So instead of kind of jumping ahead or not dealing with it, I decided to make this a part of my project. And reflect on certain things that always seem kind of obvious when we are putting architecture, when we are talking about cities and urban planning. And there were certain points that I wanted to make really obvious in the dialogue. And kind of to sum it up within a very short paragraph, what is this basically context that we are it's always written in the subtext when we're discussing it. So socialist Yugoslavia was basically a socialist federation, obviously. It was a federation. Its internal borders were shaped according to national questions in a communist political structure, which defined its new historical paradigm. However, after the 1948 break with Stalin, it could not be placed within the Eastern or Western Bloc. This course of progress, the path to modernity, which brought new developments of cities, new aesthetics, new idealism, would not have been possible without industrialization of the country, nor without overcoming cultural differences under the banner of brotherhood and unity. Researching this, one touches upon several themes that we are preoccupied with when talking about ideology, namely language, territory, technological progress, governmentality, identity, affinity, utopia, economy, transformation, transition, future, past, etc., which are all extremely big words, extremely big themes, and a number of volumes and piles of paper have been dealing with it. And somehow we have to think about it or think architectural thoughts within that. However, our relationship towards these themes differs regarding the context we're coming from. Like I said, looking at architecture from within can give one a different perspective than from the outside. Since I was dealing with ideology, like I said, I didn't want to cross this kind of questions. I decided to work with them, and I decided to confront two perspectives in the video, and this is the reason that you're probably looking in the background to these images. This was the result of my research. It was a confrontation of two perspectives, an architectural one and a philosophical one, one from the outside and one from the inside, one commenting on specific global developments and the other on global themes in local environments. These themes were confronted by Kenneth Frampton and Rado Richa. Just to talk, I chose to work in the domain of video and try to leave the framework as open as possible. But at the same time, I did want to point out some things that enlightened the context in which the post-Second World War Yugoslavia was constructed. And thus I named the project 5 + 2 points on architecture and ideology. Basically 5 points regarding what was going on, what were the specifics of Yugoslavia that I mentioned earlier, and 5 points that deal with same kind of processes globally, internationally. +2 in the project stand for bracketing the idea with architecture, culture, and future pasts, meaning how do we see architecture, culture in general, and how is it implications involve thinking about the future. What I found is really good about the video is that it basically gives one the opportunity to leave these kind of results or end conclusions very open, as I think also our project, even though its scope, like Mario said, was not to give a concise history about what Yugoslavia planning or architecture was, but mainly that the biggest thing or the biggest accomplishment is to kind of enable a dialogue that is at all possible to reflect on this and to make it a part of history, because in a way we are dealing with histories that have been overlooked or that have not found the right place in the course of, in the theoretical books. And which brings me back to architecture. Like I said, I wanted to compare initially buildings. By the end of the project, it became more about the discourse than about the buildings. And as stated at the beginning of the video, today there are basically 7 countries in the territory of former Yugoslavia, and I think even that is not the final kind of outcome, or that is still kind of a process of becoming. And in the research, then in this kind of 2 dialogues that are presented by 2 screens facing each other, then in the meantime you have basically archival material and pictures of architecture from that period. So also the architectures presented in the video are likewise from the 5 countries that were kind of joining in this research, also 5 architectures from these countries. And I think what the outcome or the video in this double screen, which is this was basically shown on two plasma screens. Then I just, for the sake of the presentation, I put it in one screen so you can have an overview of or a feeling of what came out of it. I think there are many possible directions that you can interpret what was the result. But what I think is that about the houses themselves, a lot of researchers will talk about and have a lot more insight than I do. But what I think that this project, or at least what I tried to open up, was basically these 7 themes or these 7 parallels which deal with, first pair was basically architecture culture, about how we reflect on our environment and how we reflect on ideology. The second was about abstract language of architecture and territorial transformations that took place in this region. The second was, or the third, engineering form facing the forms of governmentality. The third or fourth, identity and affinity that were taking place in this post-war phenomenon. The fourth, utopia and economy, and then the fifth, dealing with transformation and transition on a political level, and what those implications were also in architectural discourse, and what that means basically for the future past, and what that is going to bring. I do have like everything written down, so if you have specific questions of what people were saying, I can answer your question, but I think it's more worth looking at the video in the exhibition, or if you want to, it's also available online. But basically, what I was trying to say is about this project that it opens up themes that we deal with, and we should basically pick them up in order to continue an architectural discourse, at least if you want to make it credible. So this 5 plus 2 points on architecture and ideology was about issues to be considered. This is the way I entitled it, when archiving images and other artifacts related to forgotten architectural histories, because this is essentially what we are doing. Even though this seems like something that is there and is going to last forever, I think we all know that whoever was researching these topics, these papers are basically disappearing. If we do not discuss buildings, then we're basically dealing with a pile of buildings, which is not the same as architecture. And basically this attempt was to somehow try and outline the architectural culture in certain territory verbally and visually, and throughout understanding the technological progress and forms of governmentality which have influenced the formation of new identities and affinities. This could be called utopia or the economy of culture, which is constantly transformed. Transitions are basically just a part of this process. So I think that however we proceed with this project or not, I think it's important to understand that basically just having the discourse is one of its value, and how we point out these specificities of Yugoslav context is extremely important for understanding architecture within that. Otherwise, we're just left with formal interpretations that are, I think, at this point in history and time, not so convincing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nika. Maybe you could be my Edward Kardelj. Huh?
Na Kardelica.
Kardelica, super. Maybe you could just explain why did you choose Kenneth Frampton and Riha for your interlocutors, for the two people who are going to form sort of theoretical platform for our research?
Well, with whom should I start? With the, I find it really, Frampton is a
friend of mine, friend of Mateo.
But also he's the author of Critical History. So this approach to how to think historically about architecture and what is the role of architecture in modern, like in a way our project is unfinished modern, dealing with unfinished modern project. And he's kind of coining the modern architecture, the history book. So for him, he's like a person who really understands these processes on a very global scale, but at the same time, he's coming from the Western kind of perspective. You know, he's a Anglo-Saxon kind of theoretician that is dealing from kind of Western perspective. Riha's position is a very critical kind of Marxist position within this Yugoslav context, and he's, I think, very good with arguing why and what are those key points in the ideological shifts within the context of Yugoslavia. And I really like this kind of stronghold and how they try to find positive ways upon which you could build. And Riha also says in regard to architecture and in regard to history that there is a specific way of looking, historicizing. There are many ways that you can look at Yugoslavia or what was taking place here. But basically there are certain events and certain achievements of this place that kind of transcend certain time, that can that are produced and place that are produced and that future generations can constantly look back upon, and they can reflect on certain things, and they can learn from them. And it's not only regard to architecture, which are of course certain achievements that like of Plečnik, Dobrović, all over Yugoslavia that were produced in Yugoslavia, that we can constantly rethink, and there's always something in there regardless of the changing ideology, and we should keep that in our collective memory. And he says the same about ideology, basically. Even though that there are many problematic shifts in history that took place, we can see same positions, and he's mentioning, for example, how this society formed in resistance, and he is opening up 3 basically points that he's saying that Yugoslav society was formed in resistance, saying basically no to fascism, saying no to Stalinism, saying no to division of the world of Eastern and Western Bloc, and forming the non-alignment. And this strength of resistance is basically, I think, also the strength of architectural thought that can transcend and can be like cut out of time and can constantly be a source of inspiration and something that the future generations can look upon.